What is going on, Busy Bariatrics? I'm Rob, your favorite VSG man turned bariatric coach, here to help you stop white knuckling your way through chicken, broccoli, and diet air meal plans, ditch the burn boot camps that leave you sweaty but still stuck, and finally fix the habits, patterns, and behaviors that got you here in the first place. Let's get gritty, let's get honest, and let's get busy. Real quick though, because I know nobody listens to the whole episode. If this episode hits home for you, can you just pause it, screenshot it, tag me at my weight is history, and tag Daryl at your level fitness, and send it to that one friend who keeps putting everyone else's drama ahead of their own health. You know the one, and you don't have to tell them that's why you did it, but then they'll listen to it and you can have the fight later. Today, though, we're talking about someone that destroys more progress than carbs ever could: other people's chaos. Whether it's your partner's bad habits, your boss's last minute stress, or your mom's guilt trips, if their problems keep pulling you off course, we kind of need to talk. And I'm bringing in my longtime friend and fellow coach, Daryl Perry, to help me break it down. So with that, Daryl, welcome to the show.
Rob, I'm glad to be here. No chicken and broccoli here, no burn boot camp, and we're going to talk about the biggest obstacle that we all face ourselves.
And I couldn't think of anyone else better than you, but for anyone who's been living under a rock, can you kind of explain who you are and why you help people get out of their own way?
Sure.
Because I can't think of a better person to do that.
Yeah, no. So the whole premise of Your Level Fitness is I got really tired of the fitness and weight loss industries marketing against our insecurities, telling us that if we just change this about ourselves, our appearance, our body comp, our weight, whatever, we're going to feel great about who we are. And the punchline, and I've seen this with clients, I'm sure you have too, they put all this work in, they lose the weight, and then they still feel the same. I have created what I call the inside out approach. Instead of living outside in, you're living inside out. Starts with health and fitness, applies to other areas of life. But yeah, the whole thing with chaos and drama and other people's opinions, that's the kind of stuff that we quiet. We're going to quiet the noise. So that'll be a lot of what you and I talk about.
What I love, Daryl, is you have been doing this for a while, and you've been just such an incredible mentor to me in my coaching practice. So if anyone is listening, guys, when I have problems, I go to Daryl. And I'm always amazed that he still picks up his phone for me. But it is a true testament to how good he is at looking at an entire situation and always challenging me of what the real issue is. So Daryl, when you're coaching people through their chaos, why do we let other people's drama hijack their progress so easily to start?
It's a distraction. I mean, the whole thing is a distraction because one, we'll say that, oh my gosh, I can't handle this because of, like you said, a family member's opinion, or this is what somebody else has going on, or maybe you're just talking about the tea that's going on in your DMs. I don't know. But like, there's all kinds of things where we can let what we will tell ourselves it's other people's issues. But really what it is we're just distracting ourselves oftentimes because we're scared. Like, what happens if I actually do the things that I think I should do? Am I going to fail? How's this going to go? So we cultivate this thing and we create this mess where we think it has to do with everybody else. And to some extent it does, but we're the ones that are kind of allowing that to impact and interfere with what it is that we do.
I think every coach can agree that distractions is probably the biggest. Like, if we could sum up why people don't get results in coaching, it's usually because they get distracted. What are some techniques that a distracted person can use to kind of quiet the noise around?
So that in itself, quieting the noise and practicing that on a daily basis. You mentioned that I've been doing this for a while, and I started out I started out as a group fitness instructor and a personal trainer. But when I got online, I was doing habit-based coaching because it makes sense. Because if you build these habits, you take these actions, then logically, that's going to control the stuff within your control, and then that's going to lead to the stuff outside of your control that you can't control directly, which is weight loss and body comp. What I found out, though, the more I worked with people, is if we were all approaching this logically, that would be one thing. But there's so much emotion tied into not even just our time working with a coach, but you and I both know most people that we work with, they've been at this for decades on and off. They've been aware of their body, they've been aware of their weight, and there's so much that we have to do that they have to really connect with themselves and start untangling the mess. Now, for me, you and I are both advocates of therapy. and really kind of working through those blind spots and getting to know yourself. My other career that really leads into this is I worked in marketing and advertising for about 15 years as well. So I've always been fascinated, again, how these industries market against us. So it's kind of like take the actions and habits, but we need to work on why we're actually doing them without judgment. So part of that is really just doing some daily practices, being able to sit quietly, even if it's for just a couple of minutes, and really kind of let your thoughts wash over you, which is really intense at first because your thoughts will run in every direction. But after a while, things do kind of start to calm down. You can sit in your thoughts. The things that you've been hearing all your life in your voice, you figure out that it wasn't really put there by you, and you kind of start to work through it. So this all starts with the process of calming your mind. Then once you do that, again, you're observing your thoughts, you get to the point where you can say, wait a minute, why am I playing into this drama? Why am I sabotaging? And you do it from a place of I'm not doing this because I'm bad or awful. I've just been doing it to this point for whatever reason. And then without judgment, you change when you're ready. So sitting in your thoughts is huge. Journaling is huge. But the thing for me with journaling, because a lot of times people will get tripped up on like, what's the prompt? What should I write about? I think a question we can always ask ourselves is, what am I feeling right now? You can do this without judgment, and then say, okay, why am I feeling this way? And so you go a little bit deeper. So I think that helps. And then the other thing is really just kind of speaking positively to ourselves. And I like to use kind of a mirror build-up session is what I call it. So how many people listening, you look in the mirror and you have a laundry list of thoughts and complaints about your body. You pick yourself apart. Well, you didn't naturally do that. You've kind of been taught and reinforced to do that over the years and decades. And you're just practicing one by one, might only be for a minute or so, building yourself up, looking at those same spots on your body and being positive and kind to yourself instead of tearing yourself down.
I think for a lot of us, when we think of journaling, we think of this like Dear Diary technique because that's how media has kind of marketed to our age group of like, it's almost like Doogie Howser typing at his computer or like a teenage girl sitting on their bed writing into their diary. Why can journaling be powerful if you're not a journal?
Because you're getting your thoughts out on paper, and when you see it, it is. I mentioned the blind spots with therapy. It's you calling yourself on your own distraction, on your own nonsense. So it's just when you look at it that way. Whereas, and there's a journaling app that I use. I use the Day One journaling app, and I like it because I can just put a couple of sentences down. If I want to put a hashtag in there to organize it on a particular topic, I do that. But it's just like, it's a really quick thing. Sometimes I'll write something out and it'll be paragraphs. Other times it's just a sentence. And, a lot of times I feel like another pattern that we get into is just, we only journal when we've got heavy negative feelings. Well, we need to do that when that happens, but we also need to call out all the good things that are going on in our life too. I think that helps. That helps with perspective. And as we talk about all of these mental and emotional health techniques, I mentioned that you and I are both big advocates for therapy. I still think that's the ultimate goal, is to get people in with a therapist that they can develop a positive working relationship with. So this doesn't replace that stuff, but when you do finally start working with a therapist, you can say, I've been working on this, and this, because you have a certain level of awareness just starting out.
I think it's always so important. And I like what you covered there because I think for a lot of people, they think they either have to journal or go to therapy when they're in a bad spot. And I would almost challenge the idea of the best time to start is when you're in a good spot, because then it gives a little bit of a baseline. What are some benefits of journaling or going to therapy when you're in a positive spot?
You're going to be less critical of yourself. You're going to feel more confident in your abilities. There's this whole thing of you and I, we've both done content on it. We've had conversations about it. And really in the fitness space, it's kind of set up for people to feel like imposters, suffer with imposter syndrome. Well, if you can start picking things out of your day where you're not only, look, this is what I accomplished, but, oh, this is how good I feel. Then when that negative checklist of stuff, because you know how it is, you have one negative thought and then here's an entire list. It's almost like habit stacking, right? Like it's just one right after another. When you're talking about the positive things, in therapy or when you are journaling. It's just like we talk about with nutrition and exercise habits. It's creating an environment that's going to be conducive for the goals that you have. It's celebrating the wins. It's looking for the wins and seeing victories really everywhere.
I think getting out of people's own way really does start by showing up for yourself. Are there any specific types of people or habits that you see them have that kind of struggle with getting out of their own way?
So one of them, and I like talking about this on a podcast because there is a lot of nuance to it. Um, how do you how do you still celebrate the positive emotions around food? Because there's so much information out there. Well, you have to do what you have to do, and you can't have emotions around food. And I think when we talk about emotional eating, a lot of times what people think of is somebody sitting by themselves in a corner eating and drinking whatever. And by the way,
Chicken, broccoli, and a can of Diet A.
yeah, well, as they got back from burn boot camp, what an awful
Yes.
experience that would be. So, but and I could, on a different podcast, I could actually make a case to where that exact situation might be what you need in that moment. But I think what we have to do is we have to find the balance. We have the I've been celebrating and having experiences with foods all the way over here. And now I have this, I know that's not helping me reach my goals. Where is my balance between here and here to where I can feel okay with what I'm doing? But I mean, food is the biggest one because you'll have friends and family that maybe you've got these routines with, right? Like maybe you've got happy hour after work, or you every Sunday during football season, right? And then like all of a sudden, well, yeah, look at this guy. He's changing his habits. He's trying to do better for himself. What, you're too good for us, right? You're too good for Sundays. So, I mean, it's a whole, that I think is the big one. I think it's a lot of times, I mean, yes, there is some hangups with exercise and people getting into their own way, but I find that food is much more prevalent or a much larger scale than what exercise is.
Yeah, I feel like for me, one pattern that I notice with people is when they are in like a people pleasing loop, I would almost say. It's almost becomes this idea of I'm going to get literally anyone else help before we help ourselves. What's a way that you can help a client break that pattern if they're struggling with people pleasing tendencies?
So I got a question for everybody that's listening right now. Own the resentment you have for the people that you're trying to please, because there is part of you deep down, you're angry about this, but you actually, when you look at it, this is a situation that you're creating. So we do this, and with people pleasing, we'll say on the surface that it's because I want them to like me, and there is definitely some level of that. But and whoever's listening, the person or people in your life that you're doing all these things for, in hopes that you're going to get something from them, or you're going to treat you a certain way, but deep down they're not going to, and that's part of why you actually hold resentment towards them. So that is something to journal about too, actually.
I think that's probably one of the toughest because a counterpoint I think someone would naturally make is like, well, Daryl, I I show up for my kids because I care about my kids and I love my kids and I don't want anything back from my kids. But if I had a nickel for everyone who then talks about their own parents or their own experience, there's always this idea of like, well, they kind of lord this over me or they expect me to act a certain way. And I think that's a pattern that just kind of comes up naturally in life is when you are pouring into your children, you claim you're doing it selflessly, but then when you get to your older age, you kind of wonder why your children may not do exactly what you want them to do. How do you help people protect the boundaries or protect the relationships without having that
Yes.
sort of feeling of resentment?
So again, and first with what your rebuttal would be, because you're right, that would be almost a knee-jerk reaction, I think, if somebody were to say that to me, is I would just say, listen, you don't even need to tell me how you really feel deep down, but you owe it to yourself to know. And once you know, because again, you don't even have to tell them. This isn't, we're not writing letters to them. We're not calling and throwing them away. We're not calling them and telling them. We need to know how we feel about it, because once we know how we feel about it, and the whole thing about decluttering everything and connecting with yourself and applying this to health and fitness and applying this to other areas is really getting to the point where you can start to create and be the architect of the life that you want. And a large part of that is going to be, how do you want to show up in the relationships that you have in your life? And I'm so glad that you brought up, with parents and as they age, because, generational cycles are really tough to break, any generational cycle. But if you're doing this, and if you start to really, again, connect with yourself and be honest with yourself, it's a choice you make, but then it's a choice you have to reinforce on a daily basis. And the world as at large, like, there's a lot of things that'll distract you. But if you really work on this, you then can start setting the boundaries that you need that are going to protect you, and ultimately, in many, many cases, have a better relationship than what you have now anyway, trying to please everybody.
And man, it's tough because I feel like when it comes to certain relationships, it almost becomes like you're so empathetic to that person that it's almost impossible to almost separate yourself from it. When you see a client who is struggling with other people's problems, what are some actionable ways they can start to either separate, remove, or help but not fully derail themselves in the process?
Figure out exactly what it is that you need and want in a given situation. Do that. And then once you do that, or figure out a plan to do that, then if you want to still try to be there for that person, you can be. And I mean, again, I think it's good to talk about that kind of stuff on this kind of stuff on a podcast, because we've mentioned the word boundaries a couple of times. I feel like the social media equivalent of boundaries is a boundary is almost like a wall. Like, oh, I'm putting up a boundary. But here's the thing. There's going to be there will be situations where you are going to take care of yourself and other people. There are going to be situations where you skip a workout to talk to, a sibling or a friend about what's going on in their life. Like, there's going to be times where you decide to do this. You just have to be comfortable in a way that I'm still going to take care of myself, in the present, and then continuing in the future, in addition to doing that. So it's one of those things where, both things can be true. I can be there for you, but I also have to get everything done in my life as well.
No, and I think that's so important because when I hear a lot of the times when those boundaries are blurred, I think there's a lot of, well, they almost pull like a full, well, you can't expect me to abandon my kid or anything like that. Or, like my friend was in danger and needed me, but the danger is really just the friend called and needed someone to talk to. I always say like a calendar reflects your priorities if you adhere to a calendar. How do you help clients identify what their priorities are and how it should show up in their lives?
Well, I mean, that's actually the first thing is we figure out what their priorities are. And then when it comes to the stuff that I coach them on, habits around eating, exercise, and really kind of how to manage their day to day and keep things organized, it's finding out what is really important to you and then prioritizing. Now, even if you don't have a fully stacked calendar with all these things tied around your top priority, you should have some time allocated to that on a fairly regular basis. So, like, if we're talking about consistency with exercise, that may not be gym 7 days a week, but it probably should be gym at least 3 to 4 days a week, anywhere up to seven. So, but I think the first thing is getting clear on what your priorities are, and then how do your priorities and then your ability and your willingness to follow through on those. Because again, you will have somebody tell you, well, I'm ready to do this time. Okay. And then you look at the action plan on that, and you try it for 2, 3, 6 weeks. And, we have a plan. You've agreed to this plan. The follow through isn't there. So, like, based off of your calendar, based off of your follow through, here's where we are. And that sometimes that doesn't mean, oh, well, we need to clear everything up for the original goal that we had. Sometimes we got to look at that original goal and scale it back, because Maybe you're telling yourself that this is your priority, but you're just not there yet to that level. And that's okay too.
I think it's just so funny with that, because when we're going and we're looking at everything, I feel like there's a level of codependency as well as cognitive distortion on where we think we're being helpful. But in reality, like, we're avoiding this level of like discomfort by focusing on someone else's chaos, for lack of better words, than facing their own. Why do people tend to do that as opposed to just confronting the issue and fixing it immediately?
Oh, because it's just so much easier to look at what somebody else is doing. I mean, it's so much easier to just swim in the tea, right? like watch the chaos, watch things unfold. Can you believe this is happening? But and again, like this is also a really good thing, that when you notice that you're doing it, when you notice that you're getting involved in the drama and the tea and all that, you take a step back and you're like, this is what I'm doing right now. Do I want to continue to like take part in this, or am I ready to redirect? And I think that's actually a skill. When you work with a coach, I think this is one of the biggest skills that you can learn and have reinforced, is when you observe your behavior and it's not in line with your goals, can you pull yourself back and recalibrate and get yourself back on the path that you want to be on? So I think that's what we do. We just kind of notice it in the moment, and we make adjustments when we're ready to do it.
I always say, like, when it comes to coaching, I think part of the process is realizing if a goal is here and the habits, patterns, behaviors are here. It's not necessarily our job to call out that gap. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see my hands are pretty further away. It's more of helping a client understand, like, one of two things has to happen, or really three. You either have to lower the expectation, or increase the effort, or extend the timeline to get there. How do you notice either lowering the expectation, increasing the effort, or extending the timeline? What are the benefits of doing any one of those things, or which one do you prefer to go to?
So I actually, where I like to stay with a lot of my stuff, is I want to help you build a foundational approach that you can fall back on no matter what your goal is. Now, the first thing that we have to do with that, yes, we're going to identify um, either the eating and exercise and the habits that you have that have been successful for you. But what are the things, again, are you willing and able to do? And the first thing I do, and this is all over my content, whether you're listening to podcasts, social media, on the blog, in the email, all that stuff, I think it's important to take the timeline off, because momentum is a huge thing with all this stuff. But as soon as you take the deadline away, I have to be successful at this particular by this particular time period. And again, this is another thing we've been conditioned to do. It's not even just about losing the weight. It's how fast can we lose the weight? So the first thing I like to do is like, well, let's take the deadline away. So that's going to take a lot of I'm going to do the hand thing now too. So if the goals are up here, that's going to bring those down to where we can actually meet where goals and effort are going to be, and work from there. And again, like, when I talk about this stuff is very important. You're going to be eating kind of back to this base level, eating and exercise for the rest of your life, hopefully for decades. So, but here's the funny part. Once you really get locked in on this and you start building the momentum, the results happen as a byproduct. So this is, in my view, the entire weight loss process has been given to us with tactics and tools. These are best practices. But if you don't have your own individual foundation, you don't know where that's going to be. So in theory, by the time somebody comes to me, they know what they're getting into and they know we're working on the foundation. But yeah, sometimes, a lot of times, I would actually scale down the goal to match the effort. Because another thing is, I think what's really important, and it happens with this whole thing with our headspace and our mental approach with, getting involved into people's drama and such as well. But like, I like calmness in my head. I like calmness in my head and moving at a deliberate pace. And that's something I try to teach my clients. And you know this with your clients too. Like, your personal approach to this stuff, your philosophy and your actions, they learn from you. They pick that stuff up from you. Sometimes that's directly in a lesson, but sometimes that's just from observing you. So, for me, I want you moving calmly and deliberately. again, if we're scaling the goal down, you're going to get comfortable of exceeding your daily goals and tying those into weekly goals. You're going to be exceeding those too.
It's interesting because when you look at all this and how it kind of focuses, my best clients traditionally are the ones who take that timeline off, like you said. And the way I always explain if people are listening is if you really think you need to lose 30 pounds in even 3 months, that's a very aggressive goal of 10 pounds a month, which means you really have to lose 2.5 pounds, a week by the math. But if you just said, like, I need to lose a pound a week or even a pound a month, and said, like, okay, at a pound a month, I'd be down 12 pounds. So as of this recording, I'm like 225. If you told me I could be 213 this time next year, I would be giddy as anything. I think a lot of the times people get struggled with, they either get to Thursday and they're not down 3 pounds, and then they're almost like, well, why should I bother? And they take off the weekend. Or they're like, oh, it's another month where I kind of stalled my progress. How do you help clients stay motivated while playing the long game?
So when it comes to things, if weight is something that they focus on, really leaning into the other parts of the progress updates. So I don't care if you get on the scale daily, weekly, monthly, whenever, but every time you get on the scale, I want you to take progress photos. And then for me, I will say typically do a waist measurement too. So, I mean, especially back in my days as a trainer, I used to do the head to toe measurements. But I found if I'm trying to get somebody to de emphasize the scale, getting them to take a waist measurement, because by and large, most of your clients, even if that's not their focus area, they want their waist to go down a little bit. That's a measurement that they can do on their own. So every time you get on the scale, take the photos, take the measurement, and that will tend to take the focus off. And usually what happens is they get tired of doing all three. So then they're going to focus more on the headspace underneath and the actions that are within their control. I have a similar actual personal anecdote on that. Around this time last year, I got back from vacation and I got on the scale. I was 240 pounds. Right now, I'm 222. So where I am now versus where I was, like, because here's the thing, I could have been like, I want to drop 20 pounds in 2 to 3 months. And like, I guarantee you, had I done that, it would have been, I'm going to do a visual too. It would have been up and down all years, and in the way, I find that if we set the expectation as a coach of taking a slower approach, they're going to follow. Now, there may be some conversations of the trainers I worked with don't do this. Well, if that philosophy worked, you wouldn't be here with me, right? But eventually, I mean, if the entire philosophy is slow and steady, again, they kind of know what they're going for. You mentioned if somebody wants to lose X amount of pounds in 3 months, I know plenty of coaches and trainers that would gladly take them on because they specialize in those kind of, I mean, we would consider show ready or event ready type transformations. The good thing is you get so many different people in the fitness industry that's not my focus, and I would not be the right coach for you. So I get them to focus on the other things besides usually the scale, and that tends to help things out.
It's funny that you say it with that, and I'll give numbers and like tie it all together. Is like I traditionally dance at about 225 is what I'll say. Like 225 is my happy weight. And here are some of the questions I always get is, well, why don't you get down? You know what to do to get down to 215. Why don't you get down to 215? I'm like, I don't really like my lifestyle at 215. I can absolutely, if you told me like I needed to get to 215 in the next 6 weeks, I 100% could do it. I will tell you, I've done the diet of 215 and the lifestyle, and it's just not very conducive. And then people go on the opposite end and they're like, well, why are you doing all this work to be at 25? And I'm like, well, no, you don't understand. I have to do all this work to maintain 225. I need to keep a coach so that I am accountable to someone so I don't end up at 235. And I think that's really like part of finding a coach that understands that, but also gives a level of accountability and support where you know what it takes to live in a lifestyle. How do you help clients find like where they are truly thriving in their either weight loss journey or just life and existence?
It's actually what you were just talking about, the lifestyle at 215. You're going to find a point where it is too much of a pain to keep up with what you're doing. So then you're going to relax things. Or in reality, that's where I help my clients, because if you're white knuckling it down to 215, a lot of people will try to, again, they're not paying any attention to how they feel or the amount of time that their effort and energy that they're putting into their exercise and their eating. They're just like, well, I got to keep the scale on. Along the way, we're doing a lot of notice and name. What is it that you're enjoying right now? Like, is this something that you can sustain? And then also, like, again, because we're looking at a foundation, we're always tracking the progress. But if I was still doing the type of coaching where the results were what I was selling, we would just take a break and not focus on weight loss. We would still track it, but I'd be like, that's not the goal right now. So kind of taking a break. I think people even call it diet fatigue. Just kind of take a break for a little bit in between and maintain for a month or two.
I think that's the toughest part is people don't realize diet fatigue sets in. And sometimes we get clients who are already diet exhausted when they come and sign with us. That's really the toughest part, is when we really do our intake and I start to talk to them and I'm like, you've really been immersed in diet culture as well as like trying to do this binge restrict or restrict and then binge approach. We kind of need to find out what is your normal and then lean off from there. That's a really tough sell to clients, to understand the importance of finding out what your maintenance looks like. How do you help clients reframe their mindset around identifying maintenance before fat loss or muscle gain?
Because I'm always bringing back that North Star. So whether we're talking about the content on social media or the live streams that I'm doing with clients, I have jump off topics on my lives. So one of those always is kind of like exercising for the rest of your life, removing food guilt for the rest of your life. So it's always kind of right there, to where, again, like if we, and this is something I think as a coach now, we have more control of than ever. We can control what they're focusing on, because when I started working at the gym when I was in college, I remember thinking, gosh, I wish there was a way that I could get in touch with them, because like nobody called. You didn't call your clients on the cell phone,
Wow.
on their cell phone, then on their flip phones. So like, now there's so many things that we can do to keep that information and that message in front of them. At the same time, I'm also very cognizant of, I don't want to do message fatigue with my clients. So like I try to keep everything straightforward and simple with them, to where I'll even say, we got all this information here and this is great. These are good resources. But the number one thing, you just have to log into the app every day and check off your habits. When in doubt, keep it simple.
I think it's funny because I look at my coach, Eric, and we do not talk often. Like, we will voice memo on occasion, but it's usually not coaching stuff. It's more of like life and parenting, fatherhood. Like, it's more of a friendly conversation. But one thing he always says is like, well, the good news is you've never missed a check-in. And that's really where I kind of dump all my stuff in. And then he gives the feedback and he's like, yeah, then I don't hear from you for 6 days, but then I get the update on day 7, which I think is kind of cool, because depending on what level of touch you need for a client or for your coach, you should really have a better idea of what you're getting involved with when you get into that relationship.
I'm a big believer that I want to provide the right kind of support for you. But I don't want you, I had a client that would say, well, we're going to be friends. We'll be friends for, or how was it? I told her I didn't want us to be like, I didn't want her as a long-term client. She's like, but we'll be friends forever. I'm like, sure, we'll be friends forever. Right. So like, I think the more that you can get in the type of coaching I do, the sooner you can get them to rely on themselves. Case in point, I had a client where the main thing we were working on, she was basically wanting to hold her accountable for walking. And so we were doing that. But while I was doing it, I'm talking to her the first couple times we were together, like, here's how do you see yourself doing this on the times that I'm not here? What are you going to do on the days you don't feel like it? What about when it rains? Like, so I'm trying to get them to take ownership for basically motivating and driving themselves to some extent very early on. And again, it depends on what type of coach that you're that you're working with. Some they're going to be the ones that you do the check-ins with weekly, and you're going to be messaging you at all times. And I have a price point tier in my, because I mean, this. It's a service-based business. I can provide the service to anybody, but that's not, I will even tell people that that's not my main focus. So I try to get them as independent as early as possible. And I guess that's kind of loosening the training wheels a little bit. I'm here, but I want you to be able to do this stuff on your own too.
I think it's cool because you've really helped me identify that not everyone needs the same high touch point. And when you get clear, it helps the clients because I think everyone finds what works for them. We've had a couple clients that are in our Hive package. And on that one, you really get workouts, nutrition, and our online course. And we have 2 or 3 clients who are losing like 30 pounds. I only check in like once a month of like, hey, everything good? And I get like a thumbs up, which I'm like, okay, and I hope it's okay. And then they'll like post. I see them post in the group, which is all I really care about, is they're connecting and building everything. But then it's like, oh, they're down 30 pounds. I was like, oh, goodness, let me go look. And I'm like, they are down 30 pounds. It's kind of cool to see how like meeting people at the level and comfort that they're at can really help drive their results because they don't feel they need to be on all the time. And some people do. And there's not a right or wrong approach. I think it's just what works best for the client.
I think, and we'll talk a little bit because I know there's going to be some fitness professionals that listen. We're at a point now where the service offerings are so much different than what they were 5 and 10 years ago. I mean, when you're talking about the Hive package and everything, like it is just as much, it's all about automated marketing so you can have more actual one-on-one conversations. It's all about building software into the service. I mean, the fact, like it's funny because 5-10 years ago, if you would have been like, well, yeah, check in on the coaching app as a trainer, you'd be like, oh my gosh, you have a coaching app now? Everybody's got one.
Everyone has a coaching app now.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to find a coach that doesn't have an app.
It's true.
It is funny though, because when you look at like the evolution of fitness, and I'm always curious on your take of this. I look at like when I hired personal trainers 20 years ago, like out of college, I have some money, I want to lose weight. The idea of having someone email a workout or even like have it on your phone was foreign, one, because smartphones didn't exist back then. But the only way that you could really get the knowledge or even start to get the results was you would hire a trainer at a gym, like you'd have to join a gym. You would hire a trainer who would be on the floor. You would only see them for the 30 minutes you worked for them. And then that was it. Do you think it's gotten better or worse since we've gotten from those days?
Ooh, better, but you got to know how to navigate it because there's so much there. I mean, it was funny because when I started in the industry, YouTube wasn't a thing yet, and so now, I mean, you could say with YouTube now, it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much information, there's so many resources, but not most of those aren't going to be good for you. There are some things. I think it's crazy the type of technology we have with the wearables now. I mean, all the data, even if it's only like 90 some odd percent correct, the fact that you can get, your watch will just, track all this stuff. And then as we're talking about, the apps, one of the best thing about the apps is I can pull it up on my dashboard on my laptop when I'm talking to a client. I've got all this info there for them. So on one hand, the information is great, but I mean, because it's funny, you think about, oh my gosh, I'd have to join a gym, and gym intimidation was going on back then too. So you'd be very nervous about it. You're meeting with this trainer who, usually like this is their job. They exercise. Like, what the heck are they going to do with me? And then, but now there's almost too much information. Or there is too much information. So I think it's easier now if you can cut through the noise. But again, if you're the type of coach that you're working with, they should be able to simplify this stuff and cut through the noise.
I think the role of personal training has really evolved from, you look at like 20 years ago, they were almost the gatekeeper of the information, and only because there was no other way to get it. Most trainers were people who got themselves in shape personally, and it was almost a passing of information. And I think today it's the exact opposite. There is so much information. You hire a trainer to cut out the noise and almost edit it and curate it for you of, Here's what you would immediately need to do.
Yeah, and I think the other thing now, I mean, when you talk about somebody gets themselves into shape, they then are very quick to. Now, there's a difference between having a coaching system, because a coaching system is a series of things that have been put together by the coach or trainer that they know are pretty much going to work. That's different than here's the way I did everything. That's how you should do it too. And that's how like however a trainer used to train themselves, that's how they trained their clients. Didn't matter age, didn't matter gender. This is what I do. This is what I eat. That's I swear that's how all the beef with broccoli nonsense started, because that's what all the trainers and the bodybuilders were doing. And you want to talk about somebody that would just hire coaches to keep them accountable. Some of these bodybuilders, I mean, during the off season, it was kind of crazy what they would do. But I mean, but to the point, like, I think coaching styles are much more advanced now, and I think anybody that's got that's been coaching clients for a while, you can't coach. You can't coach people all one way. You've got different coaching styles for different people, even from client to client. There's kind of some nuanced stuff that's baked in the sauce where things are going to be a little different.
I think that's a great spot for us to kind of start to wrap up. But Daryl, we are at the part in the episode that all my data shows nobody listens past the 40-minute mark. So it's kind of nice. I'm going to put you through the lightning round. Have you actually listened to any of my episodes?
I have.
Okay,
I haven't listened to them probably in about a month or so, but yes, I have.
Perfect. So you'll know exactly what we're going to go into, which is the lightning round of the busy method. So the B is for building habits. What's the best habit you've built after in your fitness journey? I realize you're not a bariatric patient.
No, I mean, I think the best one is actually what I have right here. I eat 5 meals a day, and 2 of them are the smoothies, where I put fruit, some decent carbs, and some protein in there, and gets me my insurance every single day. So
beautiful. It does kind of make us go into the U, which is understanding nutrition. Favorite lesson you wish people knew more about nutrition?
Your trigger food will not be a trigger if you allow yourself to eat it every single day for weeks, maybe even months. Eventually, the whole, oh my gosh, I have to have this, I can't control myself around this, fades. So give yourself time to work through your triggers.
I made a burger every single day for 6 months, and I swear that was the final cure of fast food, that I really do not do fast food anymore, because I've learned to work in, and it's the point that, like, if I want a burger, I'll cook it myself, or like on rare occasion, I will get one out, but it's like, this is kind of what I do. So I love that. The S is for staying active. What is your favorite way to stay active? And remember, this is a PG-13.
Giggity. The Mecca Planet Fitness. I mean, you've been there. The one
I've been to your Purple Palace.
Yeah,
you have like the best Planet Fitness I have ever been to, and I have 2 clients who work out in that gym now.
Yeah,
and I'm always like, oh my god, I gotta come back to Cincinnati, because it's the best Planet Fitness and the best Skyline chili ever that I've had.
Absolutely.
And I've had them everywhere, from Cincinnati to Tampa.
You're a well-traveled Skyline aficionado, that is for sure.
I am pretty sure I disturb people when I find out, like, that there's a Skyline nearby, and I will drive 20-30 minutes to get it. When we were in Tampa for a men's meetup, they have Skyline, but it was like 30 minutes away, and everyone's like, what do you want to do for lunch? I'm like, I'm going to be real honest with you. I am going to Skyline every day, and I'm getting Skyline. You can come, you don't have to, and I don't care if you don't. Like, it's totally up to you, but this is what I'm going to do. And just always fun. The why is showing up for yourself. At this point, as a coach, as someone who has gone through years and decades of fitness and nutrition, how do you show up for yourself these days?
I spend a lot of time reflecting. It's interesting, because it's crazy to me that I'm 43 years old, and I realize how fast time is moving. I'm still fortunate enough to where both my parents are alive, and I've got time. And while I used to be somebody that was like always on to the next thing, go, really just taking time and being present.
It's something I always joke that I admire you and I look up to you and I learn from you. And I think that's the next era of my learning and development, is actually slowing down and being present. Now, you're probably like, we spelled busy, Rob. There's no way we can finish this, but we put an exclamation point at the end for healthy source of dopamine. And again, I know it's busy. If people are watching on YouTube, we're both going like, busy. But the exclamation point, healthy source of dopamine. What's your favorite way to like either self-soothe or just really enjoy life?
I'll tell you, it's time with friends, and you and I have. It's becoming an annual thing where we do the pizza crawl up there by you, and Brett's involved in this. Heather's been involved in this before. It's spending time with the people that I care about and doing that away from screens whenever possible.
Such a beautiful way to finish on that. Daryl, if there is one last thing you want people who have heard this, they've heard you, and they're like, I like the cut of this guy's jib, how can they connect with you, or what's the best way to get in touch with you?
For sure. Go to yourlevelfitness.com. Scroll down to the bottom of the page. You will see where you can subscribe to my podcast. I've got a ton of episodes waiting for you. I've got all my self-paced resources. And then, of course, there's a big button in the center of the page if you want to join the YLF experience, which is the closest thing I have to the Hive.
Beautiful. All right, Daryl, thank you so much. All right, Busy Bariatrics, that's your reminder that your goals don't require a permission slip from your spouse, your boss, or your cousin with a crisis every Tuesday. The more energy you give to everyone else's chaos, the less you have for your own transformation. Your health also isn't selfish. It's the foundation that lets you show up better for everyone, and Daryl just walked you through exactly what to do. If you are still listening, thank you. You were one of like 5 people who do that. But if you could do me a solid, leave a 5-star rating and review, or tag Your Level Fitness and My Weight is History and tell us what your favorite part of the episode was. And as always, keep getting busy.